College Football Update with your host, Sean Spencer and Alex Loosemore.
It's going. Yo, let's move right along. And we got to go to it. Last year, the Pac-12, you see how many teams are ranked. Atop the list is undefeated Washington at 5-0 in conference. USC still has only one loss in conference, and Oregon right under them.
Yeah, that's going to change this week.
Yeah, exactly. So, but I mean, look, talk to me about this, because this is just like the Big 12, where a lot of these are boom, 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 boom. They're all getting knocked off left and right. So realistically, can Washington stay atop there? I mean, we know that might drop. What do you think?
So Washington's schedule the rest of the way. I'll just read it out before I answer this.
Yeah.
Going to the Coliseum this weekend. Then they host Utah. Then they go to Oregon State. And then they host Washington State.
Oof.
That's a tough stretch.
Yeah.
I think they whoop USC this weekend. I do not think it's close. With that defense they got there and the lack of defense for Southern Cal, I think they run it up on them. I don't think it's close. Utah, I don't think they have the firepower to match. They are physical enough to match them. If it was in Utah, I'd like it a little bit better. But especially seeing what Oregon just did to Utah doesn't give me much faith in the Utes over the Huskies. So give me another win there. I think if they're going to slip up, it's that Oregon State road game.
Yep.
I think Uiagalelei can do enough to keep them in that game. There's part of me that says they slip up that game. That's the only game I see them losing, though, until potentially the Pac-12 title game.
And that's, I mean, honestly, I think right now, I mean, one can make the argument that maybe Oregon could be also a hope, but Washington is the hope of the Pac-12 right now. You know, Washington getting it.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say in Oregon, depending on if they play again in the Pac-12, and Oregon stays clean. Oregon's got, I believe they got Cal this week, and then they got USC coming down, and then Arizona State, and then obviously at the end of the year they have Oregon State. So it's not an easy schedule. But if they are able,
4 games are at home,
right? And if they were able to meet Washington in that Big 12 championship, you talked about it, they could. I mean, they only lost by 3, and they lost because they gave Washington another opportunity. They could have easily, maybe not easily, but they were winding the clock down. So that could definitely go the other way.
And Oregon had the chance to kick that field goal. They kicked the field goal as time expired. So they had the chance to send that to overtime, slipped up. And I think that's why, like I said before, why they're like this in the rankings, why they're 5 and 6 there. I like Oregon to win out. With 3 of those 4 games being at home and the only road game there being Arizona State, I think they handle business. I think they make the Pac-12 title game with only that 1 loss, and that 1 loss being in conference.
Yeah. I mean, the way that they're playing right now, man, they're definitely a favorite for sure. Then you go down the list, you see, obviously we talked about Oregon State, Utah, who's been playing inspired football, but without Cam Rising, and this last week is just too much. Arizona, I love that Arizona right here is in the middle of the pack. Fafita has been playing his butt off and is a true freshman, and I love seeing them up there. And then UCLA. Then you go past that, and obviously these guys are not in the running. But this is where you start looking at Colorado and going back to things we said at the beginning of the year. In conference, they're 1-4.
Yep.
Now, they did great early in the year in different matchups, but that's where they're seeing. They're not going to deal with Pac-12 anymore, obviously, because they're out next year. They're going to the Big 12. But what is this saying right here? That conference games, you could not get those done in-house.
I mean, it's not saying too much to me because, I mean, nobody should have thought they'd beat USC. Nobody should have thought they'd beat Oregon. I don't think it says too much, honestly. Now, realistically, I thought they'd be 2-3 at this point. I didn't think they'd slip up to Stanford.
That was the big one.
But yeah, that was a massive one. But I mean, you look at the teams they've played in conference. You played Oregon, who's third. You played USC, who's second. You played Arizona State, who's tied with you. You beat them. That's your one win. You lost to Stanford, who's down at the bottom. Then your other one is UCLA. So you've played 3 of the top 6 teams.
Yeah.
And lost all 3 of those games. But those were expected. So I think they're right where they should be, realistically.
Yep. Yeah. At this point in the season, I mean, and maybe even one could say maybe a game higher, I mean, 4 games. There's points when we were at 4 games was a stretch. You know what I mean? So the fact that they were able to get some wins, and let's see what they got to do going down the stretch, but they are out of the Pac-12 conference